Hey guys, welcome to another video. In today's video, we're here for another book haul. This is my stack of books here that I have for you today. It is beautiful and very heavy and very intimidating because I don't know when I'm gonna get to these books. I seem to buy more books than I can read. It is an issue that I wanted to rectify. I don't know if it's because I'm spending a lot of my time at home, still decide to buy books. Anyway, these are books that I have been accumulating for the last, I don't know, few months. Okay, so the first book I have is surprisingly a non-fiction that is very relatable to the field of job I'm in, and that is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. This book has been recommended highly for numerous years now. It was shortlisted for the Wellcome Book Prize in 2007. It's not a relatively long book either, but it's basically written by a neurosurgeon who was one day diagnosed with cancer, and I believe he has passed away since, and it just sounds like a very sort of sad story, but I'm hoping that it also is sort of uplifting and more, I don't know, a brighter outlook on life, because so much of the time working in a medical field, the health system, we're often very confronted by a lot of depressing things, and so I don't know, I feel like this book will be a lot more inspiring more than highlighting the tragedies of the world, and I'm hoping that this has more of an enlightening experience. I know it's going to be sad because it is written by someone who has since deceased. It's something that I've always wanted to read ever since it was released. I was a little hesitant. I don't read a lot of non-fiction, and I decided to pick this one up because I just thought that it would be a good insight into someone who is a health professional, and I feel like I would relate to it more because I'm also a health professional. So it's odd that I never tried to pick this book up, but recently I saw this book and I just thought maybe it's time to give this one a try, and so I picked it up. I'm very excited. I'm hoping that it kind of has a more kind of hopeful outlook on life. The next book that I have is The Mermaid by Christina Henry. I honestly thought that this was a retelling of The Little Mermaid. Maybe it might have some sort of references or themes of that, but reading the back of the book, it really isn't a retelling at all of The Little Mermaid. I was mistaken. I mean, regardless of sort of the story aspect of this book, it does sound pretty tragic. So it's a mermaid who gets captured by a man and brings her into sort of a circusy carnival business, and so she kind of is used as sort of like a circus animal. It seems like it's set in more of a historical setting. Maybe I'm getting that wrong as well, but it is a shorter novel, so it's something that I wanted to get into soonish. I know that Henry is someone who likes to write darker retellings of fairy tales, and so that's something that I'm always into. The thing I'm hoping with this one is that it would be sort of whimsical but dark. I'm really excited. I hope it's a good read. We shall see. Okay, so the next two books that I have here for you today, I pretty much bought due to another booktuber by the name of RG's Devilship, and she's someone that I've been following for quite some time now. She has a very different reading taste to me, but every time she kind of talks about or brings to light certain books that she has been reading, it's such a nice sort of introductions to books that I never would have considered, and so I really do like watching her videos. I'll link her channel down below. She has a very unique and different reading taste to a lot of booktubers, and I appreciate that. She probably described these books a lot better than what I'm going to do. In fact, this first book, Claudius by Robert Graves, I don't know much about this story. I just know that it's following this character of Claudius. I believe it has a very humorous take. It's a very satirical commentary on ancient Rome. I am excited for this one, but I'm also very intimidated by it, I suppose, because it has very small writing. The next book I have is The Little Demon by Fyodor Sologub, and this is a book that I probably never would have picked up if I had not seen, I guess, a video on YouTube about it. It's basically following this man who is an upstanding citizen of society, but deep inside he's a very disturbed man, and he likes to stir drama and likes to just be crappy. He's a teacher at a school, and he begins to enjoy tormenting people and just be an overall jerk in in society. Even though on the outside he's a very normal citizen and he doesn't seem like he would be that sort of person, but subtly he will try and stir up shit. I am very intrigued. I'm also very apprehensive, a bit worried about reading this because I feel like it's going to be slightly triggering and it's going to irritate me, it's going to make me angry by this sort of sadistic main character. I also think that it's going to bring a little bit of perspective into reading a character that is so vile. Yeah, I don't know, maybe it might be humorous as well, who knows, but it's something that just sounded very intriguing, very interesting. I'm very excited for this one. I hope that it's a good read. Who knows when I'll get to this, but I feel like I want to get to this one sometime this year. There is that, The Little Demon. The next book I have is out by, oh gosh, who is this by? By Natsuo Kirino. This is a translated work from a Japanese author. This is a book that I picked up because one of my workmates wants to do a buddy read with me, which I'm always very, very happy about because I don't really have a lot of friends that want to read books in my life. It's a book that I've wanted to read for a while now, but I recently just got a copy because I loved this vintage classics edition of it. And this book is set in Tokyo. It's following 4 women after years of sort of emotional abuse and just alienation and a total disregard for his wife. This woman decides to murder her husband, and she basically gets these other women to dispose of his body. That sounds very, very disturbing, but I think it also has a mystery crime element to it, obviously, because she committed murder and tried to hide it. It sounds like it will be a very intense read, and I've been meaning to read this for a while. I've struggled with Japanese literature in the past, and so something about Japanese literature, they have very stunning and beautiful writing, but it's always the characters very disconnected and you can't really relate to them, and they seem sort of robotic in a way. Maybe I haven't read enough of Japanese literature, but that's what I kind of get a vibe of every time I pick up a translated Japanese fiction. But I'm hoping that this one is a little bit different. I'm really excited for this one. I'm excited to buddy read it. We'll see how this one goes, but it sounds pretty intense, pretty disturbing, and I'm excited for it. The next book I have is Sea of Strangers by Lang Leave. It's been a while since I've read any poetry. So far for Lang Leave, it's been hit or miss. I don't always love a lot of her works, but there's something very mesmerizing I'm really intrigued by, and I'm very drawn to any poetry collection she always releases. Maybe it was a cover buy because this is just the most stunning one. Maybe it's just the coloring. There's something very aesthetically pleasing about the way her books are published, and so I decided to pick this one up. I don't know what came over me, but maybe it's because there was a lack of poetry that I read last year. I decided that I need to pick one up, and so I did. The next book I have is The Deathless Girls by Kieran Millwood Hargrave, and this is a, how should I say it? It's sort of a retelling of Dracula from the perspectives of the wives of Dracula, something along those lines, and it just sounded very intriguing, very dark, very alluring. I don't know. Maybe I was also drawn in by the cover. You know, if it has good cover art, it's gonna draw me in. It's beautiful. I have actually seen a few people do wrap-up videos and kind of mention The Deathless Girls. Oh my gosh. My neighbors have decided to mow the lawn, and so I'm gonna have to wait a little bit before I continue on with this video. I'm back. The mowing has stopped and I got my tea. It's very hot right now, so I don't know. I'll take a sip of that. The next book that I have is A Wish in the Dark by Christina Soontornvat. This is a book that I picked up because I was following one of my favorite bookstores on Instagram. They did advertise this. It's a children's book and it just sounded so beautiful. It's set in a Thailand-inspired fantasy world. It's also a Les Miserables retelling, and so I feel like that is a very Are you serious again? Guys, I am so stressed right now because I don't know when this neighbor is gonna continue on with his mowing. Anyway, like I was saying, I was just very intrigued by this book because it has a different Asian inspired setting. It's also a Les Miserables retelling, which I haven't read Les Miserables only because it's a very long book, but I've seen the play, the musical, and I loved it. The cover, first of all, is very beautiful. I believe we're following a prisoner who hides at a temple because a monk at the temple decides to protect him. So this boy thinks that he's escaped that life as a prisoner until one day one of the guards from the prison ends up coming to this town where this temple is at, and so it's a whole sort of cat and mouse chase for these two characters. This is a book that I've never heard anyone talk about on BookTube, and it just sounds so magical but also intense, and it kind of seems like it's gonna hit on some harder topics for a children's book, and so I'm very excited for this book. I'm hoping to really like it, and thank you Kinokuniya for kind of introducing this book to me. Otherwise I never would have picked it up. It sounds so very intriguing and I'm very excited for this one. The next book I picked up was Jiang Born 1982 by Cho Nam-ju. This one is by a Korean author. It's translated fiction again. After the Asian Readathon, I definitely wanted to be a bit more conscious of reading Asian authors because it's something that I feel like I would be able to relate more, and it will bring sort of a different outlook on life in these sort of stories that are written by people of color. And also as a Korean, I wanted to read more books by Korean authors, and I'm glad that we're getting more translated fiction from Korea, so I'm really excited about that. And this is basically following this character Kim Ji-young living in the 1980s. It kind of focuses on all the sort of societal and cultural pressures of being a woman. It's getting a little bit better in Korea, but I still think that it still has a very traditional mindset. It's something that I've been meaning to read, and I decided to just pick it up. Also, this cover is very bright, very bold, and I like it. I like it a lot. The next book I have here is The 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene. I suppose it's sort of like a non-fiction book that kind of encompasses all the sort of strategies of war and conflict that have happened in history and bringing it into strategies that you could use in the present day. And I mainly picked this book up because I follow a YouTuber called Comic Book Girl 19. She does these sort of book clubs, and the one that's currently going on is for this book, and I'm someone that just doesn't like conflict. I usually kind of avoid conflict or try to, but I genuinely do want to know how to handle conflict and all sorts of different conflict, and so I decided to pick this book up. It's a book that very much intrigues me. It kind of looks like a textbook, if I say so myself, but each chapter it's not excessively long like reading a textbook, and so I'm really excited for this one. The next three books are part of a trilogy, and it's by an author that I very much love, and it is the Renegades Trilogy by Marissa Meyer. If you have been following me for a while, you know I love the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, and oh my gosh, the first book is Renegades, the second book in the series is Arch Enemies, the third book is Supernova. It's pretty much set in a world where there are heroes and villains. The main character, I don't know if it's in dual perspective, maybe it is, but I believe there's a character who is sort of a villainous character who's trying to infiltrate the group of like heroes in this world and trying to bring them down from the inside. It just sounds so intriguing. You know what it kind of reminds me of though? It kind of reminds me of Steelheart. I'm hoping to really like this trilogy because I've heard really good things about it. I know I'm a little bit late on the bandwagon with this one. I decided that I wanted to pick something up from Marissa Meyer because I haven't read any of her books for quite some time now. I love a good kind of hero-villain story, and it's set in a world where people have these sort of superhero abilities. This is a book series by Marissa Meyer that I have been keeping an eye out on, but to be fair, like if it wasn't by Marissa Meyer, I might have skipped out on it, but because I love Marissa Meyer, I decided to pick it up. I don't know what came over me, why I ended up buying all three books in this trilogy even without reading the first one, but I'm a fan of Marissa Meyer, and so I think that just in itself itself was like an automatic buy for me. The final book I have here that I've picked up is When We Were Vikings by Andrew David MacDonald. I was very intrigued by the cover. It was just so beautiful. It's compared to books like The Silver Linings Playbook, The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Maybe it's sort of a coming of age story, but why is it Vikings though? I don't know. I'm intrigued. This is a book that I also picked up without knowing much about it. I kind of wanted to make it sort of a surprise read. I suppose if it's compared to those other two books, it must be sort of literary fiction, coming of age novel. I don't know what else, but this one's gonna be a surprise for me. You know what? I feel like it has more of a summery springtime vibe, so I might read it towards the latter half of the year. So that is it. These are the books that I recently picked up. I'm super excited for a lot of these. Hopefully I don't break my back, but here it is. These are the books that I recently hauled. I'm just putting that down because it is way too heavy to hold for more than like 2 seconds. But yes, those are the books that I recently purchased and I'm super excited for it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have you read any of these books? Do you recommend any of them? I hope you guys have a wonderful day and happy reading. See you in my next video. Bye!